You are listening to Radio Maria Canada. We now present the Health Hub, hosted by Cathy Biase.
Welcome to the Health Hub on Radio Maria Canada, exploring cutting-edge health and wellness information and therapies, helping you to take your health to the next level. I'm your host, Cathy Biase, and I'm a holistic nutritionist and a professional cancer coach. In a world obsessed with metrics, perfection, and pushing through pain, it's easy to lose touch with the simple joy of movement. But what if moving your body could become an act of listening, a conversation with yourself rather than a competition? Today, our guest is Rachel Robertson, and she is a kinesiologist and a Pilates instructor whose work bridges science and self-awareness. She helps people rediscover their body's innate intelligence through intuitive movement, a practice that goes beyond exercise to cultivate presence, connection, and trust. In this episode, we explore what intuitive movement really means, why it matters, and how it's helping people transform not only their physical health, but also their relationship with themselves. Rachel shares practical ways to reconnect with your body's cues, release patterns of overdoing, and move to a place of curiosity instead of control. Rachel, as mentioned, is a kinesiologist and a Pilates specialist with over a decade of experience helping others overcome physical limitations and rebuild trust in their bodies. She blends science and movement artistry to support injury recovery and sustainable strength. A two-time World Kettlebell Champion and community wellness advocate, Rachel also educates fellow kinesiologists through workshops and webinars. She holds a kinesiology degree from the University of Western Ontario and is a recognized member of BCAK. Her passion for movement, shaped by her athletic background and personal journey, continues to inspire clients and professionals alike. So whether you're an athlete, a chronic exercise overthinker, or you're someone who is really thinking that it's time that I learn to slow down a bit, this conversation invites you to experience movement as medicine and to remember that your body already knows the way. So stay tuned, and we'll be back in just a few minutes to speak with Rachel.
You are listening to Radio Maria Canada. We now continue with the program, The Health Hub, hosted by Cathy Biase.
Welcome back to the Health Hub. Please do follow us on our social sites. We are on Instagram, X, and Facebook, and we are at the Health Hub RMC on those locations. Rachel, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Nice to have a fellow Canadian on board. We haven't had a fellow Canadian in a little while, so it's nice to have you with us.
Oh, that's funny.
especially, I don't know if this means anything to you, but especially after our Jays' big win last night. So
right.
Very exciting. Glad we're following this up with some more Canadian content. Rachel, you have a unique background. We heard a little bit, in the intro about it. But, basically, this might be too basic. You're blending kinesiology with Pilates and then taking that into the pain space. How do you meld all three together? Because Pilates to me seems fairly intense.
Well, I think any form of exercise can be intense, but it also can come from a different aspect, right? Like a lot of people think of strength training as intense, but we can also modify strength training so that the intensity varies.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to for our bodies. So for me, in my headspace, Pilates is actually perfect from a rehab perspective. And that's where I like to start the majority of my clients. Like, often I think people are scared to exercise. And the reason they're scared to exercise is they are already in pain. But Pilates, because it's a mind-body connection and it's slow and controlled, and we can do it in different variations in the sense of how we position ourselves, like whether you lay down on your back or your side or your stomach, but also we can use different forms of apparatus to support ourselves. And those nuances allow us to not only support the client so that they can move in a way that's good for them,
Mm-hmm.
but also modify so that they can get to the place that they're trying to get, which is strengthening.
Is Pilates having, would you say, a resurgence or an insurgence in the space of therapy, or am I taking that too far?
Um, I no, I don't think you're taking it too far. It's funny because literally yesterday someone said to me, "Oh, Pilates is popular again."
Mm-hmm.
And for people who have been in Pilates, and this is actually what I said, it's been very steady. But I think in social media realms, it's just getting a lot of attention right now. And it's getting a lot of attention for two different reasons. It's getting attention for the therapeutic exercise, but it's also getting attention for the athletic, getting a sweat on, challenging workouts, which is maybe why you kind of in your head thought that it could be intense.
Well, in social media, if we go into that foray there, there is a strong contingency of people, and maybe this is changing, and I'm giving you the platform here to debunk it, saying that strength training and Pilates, they just don't equate, and that you need to be doing strength training. Pilates is just not enough in this space. And I'm saying that now because I want it to lead into this whole conversation of how much strength training, how much intensity we need. But when someone says to you, well, strength training is far superior, how do you combat that?
So I have definitely had this conversation, and I think depending on the individual's goal, yes. So my biggest response these days, I feel like I'm saying yes, but no. So why is the individual coming to the practitioner in the first place? From a weight loss perspective, we typically want to gain muscle, and strength training is how we build muscle. But Pilates can be strength training. We use resistance when we're moving on pieces of apparatus. But the challenge, and now equipment is being improved, there's only so much resistance on the pieces of apparatus where like cable machines have like hundreds of pounds on it. Also, um, body weight is an excellent modality to strengthen your body. Like, look at gymnasts. Gymnasts can perform insane movements and they're just using their body and they're super strong. Um, and then you also have to think like if someone is coming from an injury standpoint, they might start with Pilates and eventually progress to strength training. But in my mind, the two complement each other and they need to work together. And that's always kind of my ultimate goal. So my business actually offers both. And I typically have people coming in wanting one or the other. And over time, I find my clients end up doing both.
Okay. So then the thrust of what you are doing, you're a kinesiologist.
Yes.
by background. Are
Yeah.
you working with people that are in need of therapy, or are you a Pilates instructor for general health?
So for the majority, I like to specifically work with injured people.
Okay.
But um, part of how I like built my reputation within my town was by being a Pilates instructor. So my classes very much embodied all my knowledge. And as I've gone through my career, I realized how much educating the clients made such a difference. And the people who work with me appreciate understanding why they're doing what they're doing. And that's kind of the nuance and is part of the reason why they get such a blend is like I explain to them, like, this is this movement for this injury, but we need to like first for some individuals it's like increasing their flexibility, but other individuals it's like we literally have to strength train, we have to build that muscle. And so now I'm at a place where I just opened a Pilates studio. I am,
Congratulations.
thank you. I am teaching Pilates classes, but I actually probably still spend 50 to 75% of my time working one-to-one with clients. And then I've got other instructors that are teaching those classes. My goal when I work with individuals is teaching them how to modify so that they can go into a class. Because often, price point wise, kinesiology isn't covered by insurance in BC. And so people are just honest and it's difficult for them to budget for. So my goal is to either get the person independent and then they don't need to be here, or they can join group classes, but they know how to modify for themselves so that they keep their injuries safe. And so I feel like I'm always a filter system into the bigger classes. And then I'm busy educating my staff on how do they work with these individuals so that they can also keep them safe.
We're going to get into the topic of intuitive movement, which is, I think it's something that has been there all along, but is now just becoming, it's becoming a little bit more mainstream. And I think because, as the pendulum always switches in exercise and in health, we have been going so hard at the strength training. And I have done one or two shows and talked about it many times, how we can overdo our movement and our exercise based upon the harder we go, the better it is mentality. But before we get to that, there has to have been a bridge for you between your education and what you're doing now, and why you've been kind of taken down this pathway of pain, intuitive movement, and your Pilates and working with people in this space. What led you down this road?
Um, Something completely probably not on the map that people would think, but motherhood. So I currently have two children. One is 5 and one is 2. So I'm very busy. And prior to having my first, I was competing in kettlebell sport, competing at Worlds. And as I transitioned into motherhood, um, the energy levels to keep up with a child as well as train as well as work made me have to really think about how I was managing my own energy. And then you add a second child into the mix, and then it just like is even more important to manage my energy levels in all these different pockets to not only show up as the mother, as the employer, as the wife that I want to be, but to protect my mind and my body. And for us to be healthy individuals and to interact with other human beings in a compassionate capacity, it is so important to be aware of those nuances. And the biggest component that I first had to start looking at was sleep. What was really interesting was I was always like aware of sleep. I wasn't the greatest sleeper, but I would really try and get a good night's sleep. So I would try to go to bed at a good time, read a book before, turn off the light, make sure I'm not in front of the computer. But then when you have children and you're woken up in the middle of the night, or breastfeeding, and you're just not getting the sleep and it's completely out of your control, it made me so much more aware of just its impact when you're sleep deprived, which again is kind of part of the reason why it led me to this journey. On top of that, I got injured. I actually got what's called mummy thumb. And mummy thumb is really common because mothers are kind of doing this wrist motion where they're picking up their child, putting the child in the baby seat, picking them out of the crib. And it's such a repetitive motion that it causes inflammation in the wrist and into the thumb. And I had to figure out, I knew that exercise makes me feel good mentally, and I couldn't do the typical workouts that I was used to. And then I thought, oh, my workaround is I'll go for a run. And the day that I tried to go for a run, for some reason my hip just like kind of like locked up. And it was just kind of this like catalyst of my body obviously was tired. It had gone through a lot of physical changes, and what I was doing was not working. And so now when clients come into me, I look at the whole picture and we have conversations around like realistically, how much can you actually work out and to what intensity? So another piece of the puzzle was I would work out and I'd feel perfectly fine, but I would finish the workout and I could barely keep my eyes open 2 hours later. So I had just completely like plummeted in my energy levels. And I was like, oh, I am doing too much too soon. And so I've been really having those conversations. So now when a client comes in, I say, realistically, how many times a week can you work out and how long? And I was like, before you say anything, the typical answer is 1 hour every single day because I think that's what people think they have to
Mm-hmm.
do.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not about what you have to do or should do. It's what works for you so that you can go on with your day. And then when me and the client can determine that, we can work on building it. And typically, what does happen is they feel so good, they do end up building it. But it's a progressive build because the other mistake is I feel amazing, now I'm going to triple this.
Yeah, fair. And this aligns with this whole idea of intuitive training, intuitive movement. But before we get into that, I know I keep pushing this topic that we really want to center our conversation on.
Yeah.
There's a guilt built in, especially I find with women,
Hmm.
centered around exactly what you're talking about. And I think that what we miss as women, especially at your age, for those of us who are caring for grandkids and so forth, there's a certain level of activity and fitness that goes into our daily routine that is not even accounted for. And I think that this piece of the puzzle needs to be brought back in because you're absolutely right to schedule in a workout to try and, oh my gosh, I got to do that. And it's another part of my day. It adds to the stress. It adds to the worry. And an hour is an hour. It's not a short period of time. Where do you land on that? The physicality of our just general day, working into it as a piece of our physical movement and our fitness.
Yeah, like so we actually have a word for that and it's called NEAT. And every time I end up saying NEAT, I'm like a gap on what they mean because it's actually an acronym. But it's the energy that you're burning throughout the day. So someone who is physically puttering around, they are burning more energy because they're just physically like moving the laundry, picking the kids up, da 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 da. And like the individual does not have to have kids. They can just still be busy around their
Hmm.
home or around work. Maybe they have a labor job. That is physical energy that is being put out. And that is completely different than sitting at a desk and not moving for hours. So sometimes with clients, it's like, okay, first, let's look at how physically busy are you? And if they're not physically busy, it's like, okay, every hour to 2 hours, set a timer, go for a 10-minute walk, come back, and then get back to it. Where for the individual who is busy throughout the day, we have to factor that in the sense of exercise is still important. So just because we're busy doesn't mean we want to avoid it, but the exercise can consider what the day ahead is like. So maybe on a day that you're like, oh, I have a very physical day, maybe that is more of a walk, Pilates, yoga kind of workout. And then on a day where you know that you're a little more sedentary, maybe that's where you have a more intense cardio or strength training workout. But then you're gonna like try again, breaking up your day and moving for like 10 minutes in between because not only is it good for your body, it's actually good for your blood sugar. It just helps with your metabolism. Um, so it's taking in those factors and then trying to apply it. But again, we have to make sure that the workouts are not so intense. It just completely catapult or like stops the energy for the rest of
Hmm.
the day. And I think, unfortunately, like you said, like women are very, very busy. But we also have these stories that have been told to us that we're supposed to be thin or that we're supposed to look a certain way. So we're kind of working out to meet those, and it's putting pressure on women. Um, and we forget like simple things that we need more body fat because that helps our hormone regulation. It helps our sleep, right? And we have to get away from the idea that we have to sweat for a workout to count.
Hmm.
Because if there's anything that I commonly hear is, oh, I didn't turn my watch on, so then my workout doesn't count. Or I didn't get sweaty enough. That wasn't hard enough. I didn't beat myself up. Therefore, it doesn't count. Like those kind of, that mentality is not good. And people need to like appreciate the effort that they do put into things versus saying that it's not good enough.
Well, okay, then let's go to the steps here in introducing, just before we end this segment, intuitive movement,
Hmm.
because I think it is pretty self-evident what intuitive movement is. Um, but what walls do we have to break through before we can even get to the ground floor of being able to begin this intuitive movement way of exercise?
Well, I think what is important is having a plan. So you have a plan for your week. You're going to work out Monday, Wednesday, Friday at this time, but also having a backup plan. What if Wednesday just doesn't work? Is there a possibility you could work out later that day or maybe switch it to a Thursday because your Wednesday's just so big? Is there a way that you can get movement in with a friend or a family member in some other context? Um, and then that's the first piece. So you have your plan. Then when you wake up, sorry, I'm going to go before that, before you go to bed, trying to prepare for that plan. So making sure your clothes are out for if it, let's just say it's a morning workout or they're in your bag so that you go on your lunch break, making sure your food and your water's prepped. Then when you wake up, it's like, how are you feeling? Did you sleep well? Because maybe you need to stay in bed because you actually had a horrible night's sleep. And is it worth it beating yourself up in the gym? Or do you need that extra hour of sleep? Or is it one of those things where, no, actually getting up and moving would actually make you feel better? Then when you get to the workout, it's okay, this is the plan. Oh, but my body, actually, I'm a little sore here. Okay, I'm going to spend more time rolling, stretching that area. Or maybe I'm not going to go as heavy in this part of the workout. I'm still going to do it, but I'm going to lighten my load, go through the motions. And then after the workout, making sure that the post workout food, water, stretching are all incorporated. So it's a huge like planning system, which might be daunting, but I think that's where people have to remember, just like accounting and bookkeeping, you hire the professionals to support you and guide you through those nuances. Um, and I think it's trusting yourself. People often come into appointments and they're like, I know this, but they just don't trust themselves. And they have to just like start with small steps, and they just have to like do a little bit at a time. And then as they do it, just slowly integrate more and more, and it will come. But they just have to listen to their gut and be like, okay, I do need sleep today. No, today I feel great and I'm going to push myself. And it's a combination of that.
A combination of listening to your body and then retraining so your body can read signals correctly. Fair to say?
Yes, and I think that's where like Pilates and yoga, mindful movement is super helpful, is because it's that mind-body connection which allows you to like feel that. The second piece is Pilates is a great like active recovery in complement to strength training.
Fair. Okay, let's take a break and we'll be back in just a few minutes.
Perfect.
You are listening to The Health Hub here on Radio Maria Canada. A Catholic voice wherever you are. To contact us and be a part of the show, email thh@radiomaria.ca. We now continue with the program. Here once again is your host, Cathy Biase.
Welcome back to the Health Hub. My guest is Rachel Robertson. We're going to continue along with talking about movement, intuitive movement, reading body signals. Rachel, how can movement become a tool not just for the physical body, but for the emotional and the emotional regulation and self-awareness?
Well, exercise is a stress reliever. So often people feel better after they've exercised. And for people that can come up in various forms, like stretching, can help relax the body, calm the nervous system. In Pilates and yoga, we use breath, which is really good for the nervous system, again, calming it down. But then if we look at the opposite side of exercise where there's intensity, sometimes that intensity can get rid of like a lot of angst or energy that someone is holding. And sometimes that's what people need. I always love to joke. We do med ball slams in our strength and conditioning class, and I'll be like, "Who pissed you off today? We're gonna slam that ball." And it's just like to get people to like take out that energy. And then sometimes it's just like people are happy and that's why they're able to do it. And it's good to kind of just move that energy, and it's good for the mental capacity. People just often feel like they have more resiliency when they work out, which is good.
Mm-hmm. What patterns do you see in people that are very disconnected with their bodies?
It often shows up in coordination. So some people who are disconnected from their bodies just really lack coordination. Sometimes it's actually listening to cues. So I notice with my clients who I see on a consistent basis, I can tell when something's off because their response to cues is completely different. They might just like not be able to tell their left from their right. They just won't interpret an exercise that they've done a million times. Um, and so I always kind of like hold space for that. And I usually check in like, how's your week been? And like they don't even realize, but I'm partially doing that to be like, oh, okay, yeah, they had a really busy like task at work and it has consumed a lot of their brain power. That's completely fine. I'm going to just kind of like maybe adjust the workout because they're just not getting the cues or simplifying it. Like sometimes it's just like having a simpler movement pattern versus in Pilates. I love Pilates because it can be so creative in the sense of creating flows as an instructor, but that can be challenging for the client to receive. And so giving them a more simple pattern to move through because they just don't have the brain power. But then after, almost like 99% of the time, people leave saying, I feel better.
Hmm. Well, it's like Monday morning, just get to the gym if you can do that. And I guess there would be steps into creating, intuitive movement isn't something that comes naturally to a lot of people. What would the steps be in your estimation to creating, and I'm sure it's a continual back up and move forward and back up and move forward, this intuitiveness with our body and where we should push and where we should pull back. What are key steps for that?
I think checking in with ourselves. So like for myself, first thing in the morning, I do a check-in. Like I kind of do like a body scan, like, oh, my mid back is tight today. My feet feel really tired. Okay, part of my warm up is going to do some thoracic extensions. I'm going to roll the bottom of my feet, stretch out my toes. I kind of use that information in my workout. I also use that information in my day to day. Often, if like my knees or my feet are really tired, it's because I've been standing but not physically moving. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, as I go through my work day, I'm gonna like try and adjust my positions, maybe demonstrate a little bit more. Like that's the nice thing about my job is I can demonstrate exercises to move my body. Sometimes I'm doing that partially to give myself that movement. And it's like one or two reps, but it's enough. So that being said, someone who has a desk job, they can get up, do a couple stretches beside their chair and sit back down. It's those little nuances, right? Like the amount of people who come up to me and they're like, I have a sore neck and shoulders, and my back is really tight because I'm hunched over a computer. It's like, I hear you. Okay, so like I just said, stand up beside your chair, big stretch, reach for the ceiling, even do a chest stretch in the door frame, go for a walk to the bathroom. Those little nuances can help integrating some of that response to the body. The challenge, if anyone is like me, I can get hyper focused and lose track of time. And so it can be like 4 hours later, and you're like, oh, I haven't moved. So then setting timers because you get so focused that you don't stop. Then it's like, okay, when that timer goes off, okay, now I have to check in with myself, or now I have to get up and go for a walk, or those nuances. And I think that can help people start integrating. And I think it's just asking themselves questions.
Fair. There's something that pops into my mind because I'm more of a, and I'm learning very quickly to step back and be a little more kind or gentler because I'm one of those types that pushes, pushes, pushes. But the thing that pops out to me as a question for you is how do we balance this idea of intuitive movement with the need for discipline in order to progress and improve our health? What I'm saying is, I see falling into a pattern of, yeah, my neck is sore, I shouldn't work out. Or, that type of ideology that would come into play when someone is maybe looking for a reason not to exercise.
So I get that a lot, typically because people will be like, oh, my knee really hurts. I'm not going to come today. I'm like, that's exactly why you come to me, is because my job is to keep you moving around that injury. So again, this is where it's really helpful for people to be going to the professionals around them. Um, because I actually this summer, um, walking to the grocery store, slipped on gravel and really badly sprained my foot. I did not stop working out because I could sit in a chair and do upper body exercises. I could lay on my back and do Pilates exercises. And so for me, I have that knowledge. That's where I have that advantage.
Right.
But for other individuals, that's where they can like ask for help. Like honestly, one of my mantras in my planner is literally ask for help. Like I'm always thinking of ways of how can I ask for help. And I think a lot of us can understand that we're hyper individual or independent and we're just think, oh, we're gonna do it. But you know, as much as there's lots of free information out there about nutrition and exercise, it doesn't necessarily mean that we understand it correctly. And so going and seeing a professional who can help you move in a safe manner or in a context where they can say like, look, you've been pushing yourself too hard. Let's do some stretching and rolling instead of strength training or do some Pilates, right? Is super helpful.
We talked about, or you talked about, how exercise, how does a general overall health affect, but specifically when it comes to intuitive movement, how does this fit into like a larger conversation around the nervous system health, trauma, recovery, mindfulness, all of these pieces of what we would, I guess, assume would be integrative health worked into the physiology of our body? How does intuitive movement push our health forward?
Well, I think if we take it back to like people just trying to always look for that sweat and like over push it, exercise is a stress on the body. Exercise will
Any
help you build,
exercise?
yeah, will
Okay.
build resiliency. But there also comes a point where you can tip the scale.
Hmm.
And so we have to think that we have to find that balance. It's a spectrum. And I think what is really important, we want to have those game plans, but we don't have to adhere to them. And I think the mistake is that people are like, I have to work out 3 times a week and I have to work out hard. And it's like, if you were to go and do a yoga class, a Pilates class, where your nervous system doesn't feel shot afterwards, then maybe you'll actually have a better recovery and then be able to go to that next workout and feel stronger. My girlfriend just said to me the other day that she is noticing as she's going into menopause that her recovery is taking that much longer
Hmm.
than it used to.
Hmm.
And part of that is like estrogen levels are dropping, and estrogen actually helps women in their recovery. So as the estrogen's dropping, they're not having that same recovery that they once were when they were younger. So that being said, she needs to do some either those workouts are too intense, which is why she's taking so long to recover, or she needs to adjust her schedule to complement the fact that she needs that recovery. So she can still move. It doesn't mean that for 4 days she has to be sedentary. It just means that the following workouts after that need to be on a lower scale so that she gets the movement without taxing her system. But like, I think what people mistake is that stretching isn't a workout. But you have to have strength to move through a range of motion, which also requires flexibility. So you're working both flexibility and range and strength are on opposite ends of the spectrum, and we're trying to find balance between them.
I think this whole idea of intuitive movement can be very impactful for women on a different stage. You know,
Hmm.
as we age, our bodies are changing.
Hmm.
And you are absolutely 100% right. As someone who's gone through menopause and I've had health issues, I have had to adjust and readjust and work with people to try and find where my balance is. And I'm still doing that. And I think that's an important message too, is that especially for women who have these cycles, who have these hormones that play a role in recovery, a role in muscle health, that we do need to be constantly adapting and readapting and motherhood. But I think when we talk about the whole idea of why I wanted to do this show, and I think you're really setting it up nicely for me here. When we talk about intuitive movement, it is having to understand how our body is functioning and moving through the aging process. And I think that this type of knowledge of our body takes away from the I can't do it anymore, I'm getting older, versus I understand what is going on and this is how I have to pivot. And I think that, you know, the aging argument and the aging mentality of exercise. And, you know, I saw one thing, some social media person talking about, you know, I've got a 60-year-old in the gym that I'm embarrassed to be beside because she's in better health than me and she can work out more than me. I don't think the age matters. I think that what matters is that we are understanding how our body changes and being respectful and being mindful and also, you know, giving ourselves this grace. And I think with this intuitive movement ideology, this allows for it without this idea of, I just can't anymore. I'm getting older. Do you see this with some of your older clients?
100%. I think the whole time you were speaking, I was thinking knowledge is power.
Mm-hmm.
And part of all of this is people having a deeper understanding of what is going on in their body.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is so good right now, the movement to perimenopause and menopause research. People are talking about it a lot more. It is a little bit of a popular thing. Like I'm noticing maybe people assuming that they are in it, partially because of all that information is out there. They may be, they may not be. But what I mean by that is like sometimes we can be inundated with so much information
Mm-hmm.
that it kind of makes you think certain things are going on. But the knowledge is power, which is part of the reason for myself. Like I am approaching 40. I think the more information I have, the better I can take care of myself. The better I can take care of myself, the better I show up. And that is for everyone that's around me. And that is where knowledge is power. But then it's not just for me, it's for sharing with other people
Absolutely.
because everyone is going to have their own journey. Some women have greater symptoms than other women. Every woman's, just like pregnancy, menopause cycles are different. People do not experience the same symptoms. Like we all have the girlfriends who just like couldn't go to school because their cycle was so heavy. And so we have to think now that we have a better understanding of educating each other so that people can move through it with as much ease as possible. Because again, like I'm not there, but watching some of my girlfriends, it's not easy when your energy plummets or you're noticing the weight gain. Like again, there's so much pressure society-wise that we believe that we have to look a certain way, be a certain way. And then you've got your body literally fighting you on that, no matter how hard you're trying. Again, this is where the professionals come in. See a naturopath, see a nutritionist, like all of these nuances to support you. Because no person is the same. It even comes back to pain. Every individual who comes in with pain, I do not judge it because pain is to the individual. It is not something that is seen. It is not something that can be controlled. It's individual.
Absolutely, it is. We're coming to the end here, and I want to give you some space to tell everybody about what you do in your practice and what you do in your Pilates session. And if are there avenues for online communication, or what would you like us to know?
Yeah, so I work with people independently. So I work one-on-one. Some people are online, some people are in person. Like I said earlier, I've opened up a new Pilates studio, so we offer group classes. But also on top of that, I work on just different ways that I can educate other healthcare professionals. So I have a prenatal and postnatal exercise webinar. I offer a clinical Pilates workshop. So this is teaching movement professionals, whether it be RMTs, kinesiologists, physiotherapists, how to incorporate Pilates specifically into their exercise prescription for their clients and what to look for and how to modify for those clients. And then that has kind of blossomed into I offer a mat Pilates mentorship program. So I'm teaching people to teach mat Pilates, but from the lens of being able to modify for injuries, how to give corrections and really get that hands-on interaction and feedback. And the reason I say it's a mentorship is it's not like a weekend course. We actually work together for a 3 to 4 month period where we're like constantly interacting. I'm giving them feedback on how to improve their teaching and even their own form because it's expected that they practice the Pilates just as much as they're trying to teach it. Yeah, so lots of things going on.
Wonderful. And where can people reach you?
So I have an Instagram, which is Return to Form Kinesiology, and then my website is returntoform.ca.
Wonderful. Rachel, it's been great conversating with you. A wonderful topic to speak of. And thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Everybody, we'll talk to you next week on The Health Hub.
You have been listening to The Health Hub, hosted by Cathy Biase, here on Radio Maria Canada.